Hello, listeners. This is Build Back Better Caribbean, where we listen to Caribbean civil society share, in their own words, their experiences, ideas, and perspectives for creating a more resilient and sustainable Caribbean future. Today, we're talking with Carnicycle, a social enterprise bridging the gap between carnival culture and sustainability. I'm talking with Danii Mccletchie, who is part of a young Tobago-born duo, the second half of which is Luke Harris, who are, I feel, walking the talk as agents of change. They are using advocacy to make the case for integrating environmental, economic, and social sustainability into all aspects of Carnival, from design to the last lap and everything in between. Hello, Danii. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, thank you for bringing us onto your episode. We're very honored to be here.
Great, great. I'm really glad to talk to you. So let's jump right in. I want to start first with your why. Why are you on this mission? What is the genesis of this mission to make Carnival as an event and Carnival as a process more sustainable?
So we started Carnicycle in November 2018. Luke and I have been best friends since high school, and we both had interest in sustainability. Him from just appreciation of our island, the environment, nature. And secondly, I just never like to throw away things. So in my room, there would be like a line of water bottles because there's just no way to recycle anything, right? And so we basically just took our passion for sustainability and also our passion for wanting to open a business in Tobago and inspire the youth to create an environmental business. After going through a bunch of different business plans, we actually landed on Carnicycle because we agreed that for an environmental business to work, it has to be something um, that has to be positive. Most of the messaging around environmental movements are usually negative ones. Like you see the ice caps melting, or like you'll see like an animal covered in oil. And all those things are very important, but a lot of people, psychology shows that people don't respond to negative messages. So Carnival came up in our heads, and it's the most positive event you can think of, and it's directly integrated in our culture. So we said if we can use Carnival as a mechanism to show how sustainability could be ingrained in our lives, um, we can really make a positive impact.
That is such a cool idea, and I really like that you explained that psychology, the positive messaging versus the messaging that can come off negative. Because it's true. I've read that as well. That seeing that type of messaging, which is important, can have the opposite effect where people tend to shut down and feel hopeless and think there's no point. So positive messaging can actually prompt that, not just the information getting out there, but also prompt people to do something about it. So this is a great initiative. So we're having this conversation in what I think is an unprecedented context for Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean in both our lifetimes. We're living through a pandemic, which has resulted in, among other things, a year without a carnival, right? And while that has been challenging, I'm thinking that this gap, this pause, is also offering us a lot of space and opportunities to not just think but also act differently. So, an example of this, I read a local article recently that talked about how Trinidad and Tobago costume designers that had been contracted to make costumes for Miami Carnival, which is coming up in October of this year, they had to rise to the challenge of finding materials to make the costumes because, Trinidad and Tobago is in a state of emergency and the borders are closed. So importing stuff is really difficult right now. And they were in a situation, the local designer community, where they are now leaning on each other, sharing materials that they have, swapping materials and so on, so that they could all benefit from this opportunity to be able to design and create after a very long period of not being able to do that. And I know that pre-COVID, this type of swapping, this type of sharing was actually part of your activity, the activities that you put, your upcycle and your donation markets, where you would be recycling bras and recycling materials from carnival costumes, sharing that material for donation as well, especially with students and up and coming designers and so on. So my question is, in this extended period, this kind of gap year that we're going through, have you seen opportunities or have you been part of any initiatives that you, Carnicycle, has been able to exploit to not just share your message with more audiences, but also just start to re-engineer this greener, more sustainable carnival that we're looking at, that we want?
Yeah, definitely. So, in terms of carnival, what we have in terms of at least the costume building process is your typical like linear take, make, use, and just trash cycle and or process. And so what we try to inspire or ignite is a circular process where costumes are kind of designed with the afterthought that materials will be used again for another costume design. And we recycle those costumes in order to start that process. So we started costume recycling April 2019. Our first carnival was actually Jamaica Carnival because Trinidad and Tobago Carnival was too big for us. So by February 2020, we were like, okay, we're ready for you. And that was actually our last carnival that we were able to do our recycling initiative because of the pandemic. But we were able to recycle around over 200 costumes in that little under a year period, which was really awesome. And then before this like lockdown, we were able to start to hold monthly upcycle markets where we would be able to sell some of the sanitized feathers, gems, other carnival costumes to both local designers and local students, artists, families for art projects at a super, super discounted price. Like super, super discounted price. And it was awesome to see the impact for, on one hand, some of like the local entrepreneurs who would come and get these materials to use for their jewelry making and actually make some really awesome pieces that they went and sold back in like other up markets and like green markets, and that was really awesome to see that direct impact there. And then more recently, around two designers came forth to purchase materials for us for prototyping reasons. So the traditional prototyping way is designers will travel to like New York or Miami to look at different appliques and feathers, and then they would bring back materials back home to Trinidad and Tobago, which would be very expensive. So some could say prototyping is one of the most expensive part of costume designing. With our circular process, once we collect enough costumes, we would completely eliminate that process of leaving the country to get feathers when you have perfectly good feathers here. So not only it saves the environment from the plane ride, from purchasing virgin materials, but it also saves the designer money from getting some stuff locally here. So that helps that local economy as well.
Wow, that is excellent. Really, really excellent. Um, so you just talked about the design part of it. So we've been told that carnival, especially in the Caribbean, is usually driven by the demands of the masquerader, right? Or the fetter or the party goer, it's very logical to assume that their tastes, what they want, would significantly influence how costumes evolve, how the parties are organized, how accommodation is organized, and all that sort of stuff. And I was looking at your website, of course, and I know that you define carnival culture as the festivals and then the events and activities that are attached to it and so on. And of course, going deeper into your work and the advocacy and this conversation, we could also argue that the culture change or the shift that you're working towards is about getting folks to see the potential for sustainability and that circularity in the process of carnival, how we design the materials, everything you just talked about before. So thinking ahead specifically about Caribbean carnivals that may happen. I don't know if anything is being planned later this year, but in 2022, once the vaccination drive gets underway and so on, do you feel like enough work has been done for us to see that demand from folks who are carnival enthusiasts, the partiers, the masqueraders, and so on, enough work to see that demand from them for a more sustainable experience. And if it is, you don't think we're there yet. What else do you think needs to be done for us to get to that point?
I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're getting there. And I can use us as an example. You can say our initiative in this like 2.5 years has really grown a lot from our first carnival recycling experience in Jamaica, where we collected, I think, 28 costumes, to Trinidad and Tobago Carnival, where people were literally like in our DMs asking where to find us, like, you know what I mean? So just using us as a case study, we can like see, or we could prove that people have started to inquire about costume recycling, and people have shared with us pictures of like the trash they've seen in fets. And so we know there are a lot of conscious people out there who want to see change, but I think that's still a small population out of all the like masqueraders out there. And to see that change, um, one, they need to be educated, because honestly, I think a lot of people still just don't know their impact. And they don't know that like islands are, predisposed to like the harsher effects of climate change. So we have it the worst. We're facing the worst brunt if we don't get it right. And so they need to be educated about those things. And I think also the stakeholders, the feds themselves, the mass bands themselves, those who have direct influence over the masqueraders, should be also at the forefront of educating them and trying to implement more sustainable changes in their processes.
So have you had any collaborations in the past carnivals with speaking specifically about Trinidad and Tobago Carnival or carnivals in the region? Have you started that type of collaboration with carnival bands or any of the carnival stakeholders, or is that something that you have on your agenda for, let's say, 2022?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for Trinidad and starting back, we did Miami Carnival in 2019, and we partnered with Gen X. They're a carnival band that has ties to, I believe, Carnival Rogue here in Trinidad and Tobago. And then for Trinidad Carnival, we partnered with Tribe, and we were able to recycle costumes by both on the day of the parade, so by the Socodrome and by the Savannah, and then we were able to host a recycling receptacle by their mass camp, which was really awesome. And then they promoted us throughout the whole carnival season. We were also able to attend one of their events, Tribe Ignite, where we played eco-friendly games with patrons. We call it bra pong. So we had recycled carnival bras on this little stand, and people would answer a eco-friendly question about Trinidad and Tobago, and then throw the ball in there. And if they got both the question and the ball in the cup, they got like an eco-friendly straw or something. So we did that, and they really have supported us. And most recently, they had a lot of excess costumes that they were trying to get rid of in their warehouse because they had to downsize due to the pandemic. And they were able to donate those materials to us that would have otherwise been thrown away. So they've been very supportive, and that's a partnership we're trying to move forward for the next carnival. And then there's been recently a new carnival band, Amara Carnival, who has formed from Ronnie and Caro section, and they actually bought some materials for prototyping costumes for us. So, and they want to work with us in the future because they want to, since they're new, they want to start out right from the get-go. So we're not only looking at costumes, but other part of their FET planning, or their mass band planning to see how we can make it greener from the start.
That is awesome. That is really awesome. I really like that they want to get it right from the start. Great. So, all right. So I want to just switch back to Carnicycle now as the organization, because I thought it really interesting that you are a social enterprise, which in our context in Trinidad and Tobago, that's kind of the exception. Most organizations, yeah, most organizations, if you're devoted to a cause, you tend to go non-profit or you go non-governmental organization. And as social entrepreneurs, therefore, you occupy a really unique space in the sense that, you have very focused financial activity that, serves your cause, serves your advocacy. And I wanted you to tell me, because I thought it would be interesting to get into what was the reasoning behind that choice, choosing that structure, the social enterprise structure, and also how have you seen the structure being useful or advantageous in supporting your work?
So the concept of social entrepreneurship is still, I don't think widely accepted, but at the beginning, as I mentioned, like that was both me and Luke's goal was to have a business. And through our research, well, I knew about social entrepreneurship before, but just through more research together on the type of businesses, we realized that every business should be a social enterprise. We should no longer just be having businesses that work just solely for the point of money, but every business should also have either social or environmental impact or a local impact to the economy, which defines a social enterprise. So that's our stance on businesses of the future, and we've also just in Trinidad and Tobago have seen a lot of nonprofits in the environmental space who could not have gone further because they're relying on grants. We know that nonprofits should also have a sustainable business model, even though they're relying on money. But we've seen more worst case scenarios than positive case scenarios. So we decided anyway that we wanted to not to I guess go against the grain, even though it's not popular, because we believe that in the future, social enterprises will be basically a regular business. And we've seen more acceptance of it because we recently applied for the GIC, so the Green Innovation Challenge, which were typically like that grant was only typically open to NGOs. And this year it was open to social enterprises. So I think that's really awesome. And you see slowly within the country, there's that change. It's just, it's going to happen slowly.
Yeah, it's gonna happen for sure. The Green Innovation Challenge, is it? That's it's a just tell us a little bit more about it.
It's put on by the UNDP, and they're collaborating with Caribbean on this as well. And I think there was another name for it previously. I think Small Development Grant. So it's UNDP Small Development Grant, but they partnered with Caribbean to make it a innovation challenge, and it's open to both social enterprises and NGOs to create a green business or a green product like a tech product or even a physical green product. And so we applied because to further our social enterprise, we want to start offering a consulting branch. And so we were shortlisted for the grant. So right now we're in the top 15, and they're gonna select the top 3 to receive a grant prize of up to $10,000 US.
Wow, excellent. Sounds good. Just one last question before we close off. You were talking about social enterprises being the business model of the future. And I thought that was really exciting. Have you found in the Trinidad and Tobago space any mentors, any mentorship? Because as we said, now it's kind of the exception rather than the rule. Have there been other social entrepreneurs that you've hooked up with or you've learned from to be able to hone your skills and make your organization a little more focused for the future?
Yeah, so her name is Shan, or her business is Sayel Environmental Consulting, and her consulting business is actually a social enterprise. It's not a nonprofit, and she's been a mentor for us since we started recycling in Trinidad and Tobago, since we did the Trinidad and Tobago Carnival. So a little over a year now, she's been a mentor in that space, and she's really awesome. Has a lot of accolades under her belt, but most importantly, she knows the struggle. Since she's been in this space for a long time, and also because she's also had a lot of back and forth going between making her business either a social enterprise and a nonprofit. And so she's been able to help guide us a lot more in our decision to stay a social enterprise or move to a nonprofit.
Yeah, I think that's really important, the sharing of the knowledge within the space, and I'm sure it helped you feel more comfortable and more confident about the role that you're playing. So that's excellent, great. Before we close off, is there anything else you want to add, Danii?
I'd just like to say thank you. Really are grateful for the support we have. I forgot to mention one more mentor. His name is Matthew Desant. He's actually a mentor on the FET space. So it's actually pretty hard to get into the FET industry or the mass FET industry. The circles are really tight. And he's been able to break down a lot of barriers for us in us being able to communicate to different people. We definitely haven't done it on our own. So just shouting out to him and shouting out to all of our supporters who have been with us from the start. And, we're able to continue getting a lot of opportunities like this one because they're able to help support our work throughout this whole process. So very grateful. Just thank you.
No problem at all. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really like the idea of, and I think our listeners like the idea as well, of adding sustainability to the mix. I think that makes Carnival preparation and the anticipation a lot more exciting, and there's a lot more potential for creativity, I think. So thanks once again. We really enjoyed it. Listeners, this podcast series is produced and presented by the United Nations Information Center for the Caribbean area, the voice of the United Nations in the Caribbean. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please leave us a comment to let us know what you thought. For more content in this series and to find out more about our partnership with civil society, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media at Caribbean UN.